Hey guys, welcome back to another video at Mr. Fixit's channel. So we got a 60-inch older Titan Z mower. The issue with it is loss of power when cutting taller grass, occasional puff of thick white grayish smoke. So basically that's the two indicators for a blown head gasket, and of course it has the Kohler Courage, which is actually a pretty bulletproof engine, but they are known for actually blowing the head gaskets. The original gasket that came from the factory didn't have the fire ring around the cylinder and the oil passages. So I'm going to be showing you that when I tear it all apart and show you the difference between the new and revised gasket and the original gasket that actually came from the factory. But yeah, this is what we're going to be doing next, is we're going to be doing both head gaskets actually blown. The mower still runs, it'll cut, but like I said, it'll puff some smoke and you'll be losing power when you're cutting taller grass. But the other way of knowing that you got a blown gasket, not blown head gasket on these Kohlers, is they're really known for blowing the head gasket externally, which means all the compression is escaping out of the head and not blowing it back into the crankcase, which some engines do. And you can actually hear it by going down here and turn the engine. Yeah, just turn the top of the engine with your hand and you can hear. I hope the microphone is picking it up, but yeah, what you're hearing is basically the compression from the cylinder escaping through the head gasket. Is basically just blowing all the compression somewhere down here, and you can see all the oil and stuff. So but yeah, this one is smoking as well, so it's definitely blown internally and externally. But I'm gonna start tearing it apart and show you how to do it. So basically real easy. We're gonna be taking off this cover first. You got a few 8mm little bolt holding the cover. There's two in the back and two, I believe, on the side. So there's one there, one here. You gotta unscrew the two 10mm holding the fuel pump onto the cover, and then you have two more 10mm back here, removing the air filter, and so that will get the cover off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and then I'll show you what's the next step. Alright, so we got all the screws off. See, the fuel pump is free. Basically what you do is just pull it from the top, just pull the actual pump and leave this holes in the valve cover, just like that, and then you can just drop it so it's out of the way. So, and the cover is already free, so you just pull it out and there you go. So now you can get to all the other good stuff we're going to be taking off. So we're going to be taking off the intake manifold, we're going to be taking valve covers off, we're going to be we're going to take this air box out. That one has two 10mm right there, you can see it in those holes. So there's two nuts in these two holes that you got to remove, and then this air box comes off. You still have to take this breather, the crankcase breather hose, you got to disconnect that from the box. I think that's about it to get this one off. And then once we got that off, then we got more access to disconnecting all the little rods going to the carburetor and disconnecting the solenoids and all the other good stuff, and then we can just remove the whole intake manifold with the carburetor all complete in one piece. So let me get everything loosened up and we get everything removed, so I'll show you what you're doing and what's next. Okay, so we got the two 10mm nut loosened up. I got the crankcase breather hose removed, and you can just slide the air box out and it's out of the way. So now you have a clear shot at the carburetor. So what we're gonna be doing next is we're gonna disconnect the fuel shutoff solenoid. Yeah, I think it's about time I get a tripod, so I need to stop doing this with one hand and filming with the other. Yeah, we're disconnecting that and getting the little rods. I'm gonna get a light so you get a better view. Alright, so that's better. So disconnecting the rods, if you have hard time remembering stuff where it goes, like especially here where you got 3 different holes, if you can't remember where things go, just snap a picture. But usually if you got an engine that's dirty like this one, you'll probably see the spot where you remove things from. But we're gonna be removing this spring right here, so you can use needle nose pliers, will work really good, but you can also do it with your hand. So yeah, come on. So that's out, and then you have this plastic clip, so you have to push it to the side to unlatch from the rod itself. So see it right there, so you just push that and see how it just opens up, and then you can pull the rod out. But now you gotta be real careful, because this piece is gonna fall off if you push it, so it's better to just pull it out. So let me see where I can get the, yeah, you can just pull it out from the hole so it doesn't fall. This is what it looks like. So this is the piece that locks the rod and holds it in place. So now that's disconnected, and we got only the bottom one, but I'm just gonna take this off actually when I disconnect this whole bracket assembly. So there is a 10mm right here on the bottom that holds this bracket on both sides. So that whole piece is gonna come off. So we are disconnecting the throttle cable, and this model actually only has one cable for the choke and throttle. There's some of them that have 2 cables, one separate, one for the choke and one for the and one for your throttle. But that doesn't make any difference. It's still the exact same setup. Actually, these are set up to go either way. So you can have it set up with 2 cables or just one single cable. So they're all the same. So once we remove this whole bracket and get that out the way, then we're gonna have access to start removing these heat shields that go around the heads. So when we get them off, then we're gonna be doing, actually we're gonna take the manifold, my bad, we're gonna take the manifold out the way with the carburetor after we remove this bottom piece, so that way we have more room to get back here, because there is one, I think one bolt or a nut back here behind the carburetor for this heat shield on the left side. So yeah, let's do that, and we'll move on to the next step. And there's actually 4 bolts, not 2, that hold this bracket. There's the front one, which I already removed. Then you have another one back here. So that one also holds the heat shield right here, this heat shield. So that second bolt goes through the bracket and through the bottom of the heat shield. So I just wanted to mention that, so you have it on both sides. And be careful, a lot of times, especially on some of the older machines, these bolts, they like to really seize up in the heads. So if you force them, they will break inside the head. and that's not really a fun task trying to remove the bolt. I mean, I had some times where I had to replace the whole head because I couldn't get the broken bolts back out. So yeah, be careful when you're taking all these bolts from the head. And some of the older models, you had the same issue taking the valve cover bolts off too. They'll also snap inside of the head, and you probably gonna have like a serious hard time trying to get it off. And also, I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but if it is picking up some background noise, I apologize about that. I have an AC unit running behind me because it's been kind of brutal this last couple of days. So I'm just letting you know. Let me get back to this, and I'll be back when I get all this stuff removed and show you what the next step is. Alright, so the bracket is all disconnected and loose. Now you only have the one main tension spring on the back to disconnect. So yeah, you can just grab it with some needle nose pliers and pull it out. Just remember which slot it came out of when you go to put it back together. And this one wants to be a pain. Okay, so it's out. And now I can just wiggle this rod, just flip the whole bracket and get this other rod that connects to the carburetor off. So I haven't even disconnected the cable, the throttle cable. I just decided to leave it on there. Something else holding it. Okay, we got secondary spring. Yeah. Okay, so you got a second. I believe this is the idle spring that's in the back. So you got to disconnect that as well. See it right there. So yeah. Get this thing disconnected. Come on. Okay, so we got the other spring off, and then we can just turn, and yeah, there's the other rod is all free now. And we can take this whole bracket with the throttle cable and just set it to the side so it's out of the way. And now we can just go on to taking the whole carburetor intake manifold off. And this little spring decided to hook itself again. Isn't that fun? Come on. Okay, so yeah, disconnect your fuel shut off solenoid. Basically you have 4 8mm bolts on the top that hold your intake manifold, and yes, there are gaskets underneath, rubber gaskets that you're gonna have to replace, but they do come in the head gasket kit if you're buying the whole kit. So yeah, take the 4 bolts out, disconnect the kill switches on the ignition coils. Don't forget to put this wire back on the far out on the right side. That's your ground that goes through one of these bolts that hold the intake manifold. So don't forget to put your ground back in. But that's that, and then I'm leaving everything as it sits. The carburetor intake manifold, the wiring harness that is tied to it, that's why I'm disconnecting it. The kill switches are on the same harness, so that's why we're disconnecting them from the coils, so then we can just lift up the whole assembly, carburetor, manifold, and everything, and just move it out the way. And yeah, I'm probably gonna need my other hand for this because the wire got caught right there. Okay, so there it is. You can just set it up here so it's out of the way, and there you go. So yeah, this is the gaskets I was talking about. They're actually stuck onto the head. So yeah, these have to be replaced, and they do come in the kit. So the only thing is they have these little, I don't know what you call them, like little nipples or teeth or whatever, if this camera decides to zoom in. But it's what's supposed to hold them in place when you put them in this groove onto the bottom of the intake manifold. So make sure you press them into the intake manifold real good, so they don't fall off when you're setting the manifold down. So yeah, these are getting thrown away, and now we're almost on the final stretch. Now we got to take these heat shields, and that's the bolt I was talking about. That's all hidden behind the uh, carburetor right there. So we're taking these heat shields off, and then we're popping the valve covers off. We got to do the exhaust. These are Torx. I think it's a 6 or 8 millimeter. I'm gonna confirm that in a little bit. So yeah, we get the exhaust off, the valve covers off, and these heat shields, and then we can actually pull the heads off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, so all the heat shields are loose. Make sure you keep track of which bolt came out of where, because you do have a mix of 10 millimeter and 8 millimeter, and some of them are long, some of them are short. So you have these two 10 millimeters long ones. They go on the back heat shields on the bottom. They're pretty hidden all the way underneath. Then you have the bracket. Some of them have it on the left side, on the left head, some of them have it on the right head. Regardless, is the bracket like an engine lift bracket. These have the long bolts, and then the other head have two short 10 millimeters that go on the top right there. Then you have these two long 8 millimeters. One goes on each of these rear shields right there. So you have 8 millimeter long 8 millimeters, and then you have two short 8 millimeters. They go actually in the front right here, one on this heat shield, one on the other. So just keep track of all these bolts, because like I said, they're different lengths and different sizes, so you don't want to mix them up. We got so we got the heat shields. Yeah, we can just take them off, and see this kind of crap is actually a lot of time why these engines blow head gaskets, because they overheat. See, this completely clogs up any airflow coming down and cooling the bottom of the head. So you can see that the groove, so this was all clogged like into the fins of the head. So there's absolutely no air coming down like to the bottom of the head and cooling it down. And this is not even as bad. I mean, you got other ones that have huge rat's nest built into it and all kinds of crap and crud built up in here. But this is one of the main reasons why these Kohler engines actually blow head gaskets, because they're being overheated, and because they have all this crap collecting in the side of the heat shields, and there's not that much room. I don't know why they did that. I guess they wanted to make the air flow faster or whatever their reasoning was, but yeah, they'll get filled up with dirt and all kinds of crap, and sometimes rats and mice will make nests in here, and basically they'll block any type of airflow coming down these passages and cooling the bottom of the heads. And this is where all the heat is, because you have your exhaust manifold on the bottom. So all this heat is just sitting here and collecting and just heating up all that dirt and crap that's over here in the heat shield, and you don't have any airflow to cool it. So yeah, that's why you blow head gasket. But yeah, we got I'm using actually metric, so I'm using a 6 millimeter hex. So that's what I'm using. It's a little loose, so I'm pretty sure this uses a standard, but I've been using the metric ones. So yeah, if you have standard keys, just use the standard ones, because you don't want to be stripping this head And again, be real careful taking these bolts out because they are prone for really rusting, corroding, and getting stuck in the head as well. So be very careful taking these out. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull these out, pull the valve covers out, and then we can remove the heads. Alright, so we got the valve covers off, and those are T30, so 30 torques. And now to get the rocker arms loose, I know you can't see it in the video, but there is a T20 Torx in the center, which is your lock screw. So you get that loose first. Yeah, once you get that loose, then you can turn this out. So then you can just pull the rocker arms out. I mean the push rods out. Whoop, there we go. So yeah, you can pull the push rods out and you can just leave the rocker arms in place. Just let them hang. They're not going to be really in your way because you can move them to get to the head bolts. So you have 4 bolts right here, 2 on the bottom. You got 2 on the outside and then 2 inside the head. So take those out. Those are, I think, 16 millimeters. Then just make sure real quick. No. Okay, so I was way off. They're 13 millimeter. So 13 millimeter bolts, the head bolts, and you're reusing the bolts. So we're going to take the heads off and then we're going to inspect them, make sure they're good. There's actually a thing in the manual and the new head gasket set that tells you you put them on a flat surface like a real thick piece of glass, and then you go around it with a filler gauge to check if the heads are warped or not. But yeah, I never got one that's real bad to where it got warped, so I've never had to replace a head for that reason. So yeah, we're going to take this off, clean both surfaces, clean the block and clean the heads, and we're going to be putting the new head gaskets back in. Alright, so we got the both heads removed, and now I'll show you. So the heads actually look healthy. It doesn't look like they had any damage, so they're just gonna get cleaned up. I'm still probably gonna check them with a filler gauge, but I'm gonna get all this buildup, all this carbon buildup off, and then clean the mating surfaces, get them prepped for the new head gaskets. And we do the same to the block, but I wanted to show you real quick. So this is where the gasket was blown externally, so this is where it was blowing all the compression out, but at the same time on this head it was blown internally as well. So what it'll do is, as the piston is going back in and sucking the air, it would actually suck oil through this chamber. So that's why you're getting the smoke, and that's why it's actually dripping oil coming out. So yeah, both of them were blown pretty nice. So here's the other one, but this one was the worst. And now I'm going to show you what the difference is, what I mentioned in the beginning of the video, why it even blow, because you can see. So this is the original gasket that came from the factory, and we're going to compare this to the new gasket, and you can see there's a huge difference between the old and new. How thick it is to begin with, and then you have this fire ring around the cylinder, and also on the back around the passageways, the crankcase and everything. So the factory gaskets that came on these engines, they were nowhere near as good as these replacement, and these are the original Kohler replacement gasket. Here's the part number. So this is the new and revised gasket kit when you're replacing these head gaskets on these Kohlers. So this is the gasket that's gonna come in your new kit. But yeah, this is, like I said, the old ones, and that's why they all blow. If you still have the factory ones in there, it doesn't take much to overheat them and they'll just blow. A lot of them, they'll actually blow externally and you're not even going to notice a lot of time. The mower is still going to run fine. It's just going to be losing some compression, but it'll still start up fine and run and cut and probably not even smoke for a long time, and you're not even going to know that that you have a blown head gasket. And the symptoms that you're going to start experiencing, eventually you're going to start losing power if you're cutting like wet grass or really tall grass. That's when you are going to notice it trying to like bog down and kind of losing power. But other than that, the mower is going to run perfectly fine, even with a externally blown head gasket. I actually have a Cub Cadet in the back, 54-inch, and I'm using it from time and again to just cut my grass around my house, and it'll start up, turn the key, starts up perfectly. I'll run it, cut the grass, no issue. But I do know it's got a blown head gasket on one cylinder. So I'm gonna leave you with that on this video. I'm not gonna go into the reversal process of putting them back on, but like I said, just when you get them removed, inspect the heads, make sure everything's good, clean the surfaces. Oh, I was gonna mention what I use. I use these Scotch-Brite to clean up the surfaces, or sometimes if they're like really bad, I can use these pads right here with a little die grinder. But you gotta be careful with these because these are like pretty abrasive, so they are taking down some of the material, some of the metal, so just be gentle when you're using these. But yeah, clean the surfaces, put your new gaskets in, everything. The torque spec and the sequence is in your manuals, so I'm not going to go around doing that, or your any of the other stuff. All your gaskets are included. The intake manifold, the exhaust gaskets, always in the kit. And like I said, there's a manual letting you know what's the sequence and the torque spec. So yeah, just put everything back pretty much in reverse of the removal, and you should be good. So you have your mower back running as good as new. Just make sure you clean all the other crud and stuff so you don't overheat it again. And it's not a bad idea to every now and then between uses to get some compressed air and just blow from the side and clear any dust or buildup, or even remove the top cover and just blow any dust and dirt that collects in the side of the heads or the heat shield, so you prevent this from happening. But you should be good with these new heavy-duty gaskets. So again, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't done already. You can hit the little notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload a new video. And stay safe, be blessed. Catch you on the next one.